Have you ever felt constantly tired but couldn't quite figure out why? Does your mind always seem overloaded, even on the calmest days? The truth is, there are hidden habits in your routine that might be draining your mental health, and the worst part, you don't even notice it. We live in an era of silent exhaustion. Small automatic behaviors that seem harmless in daily life gradually build up a psychological weight that grows unnoticed. A bit of stress here, a poor night's sleep there, and suddenly, you feel drained for no apparent reason. But what if I told you that this fatigue has an explanation? Even better, that there are simple ways to reverse it before it's too late. Today, you're going to discover the 6 silent habits that are sabotaging your mental health. Things that seem normal but, in the long run, sap your energy and reduce your mental clarity. The most surprising part? Many of these traps don't come from major events or obvious traumas but from routine behaviors that, when accumulated, cause immense damage. And here's a heads up, as you go through this video, you might realize you're repeating many of these patterns. But don't worry, the first step to changing something is recognizing it. So, stick with me until the end, because beyond identifying these habits, I'll show you practical strategies to break free from them and reclaim your mental well-being. Now, before we dive into these destructive habits, we need to understand a crucial concept: the invisible cost of mental exhaustion. Imagine your mental health as a bank account. Every healthy habit you practice is a deposit. Moments of rest, good conversations, balanced meals, all of these add to your positive balance. But on the other hand, there are small daily withdrawals that you don't even notice. And the problem isn't a single withdrawal, it's the cumulative effect over time. This is how the invisible cost of mental exhaustion works. Small habits that seem harmless gradually drain your energy. You get used to feeling tired, impatient, and unmotivated, as if this is your mind's natural state. But it isn't. This shouldn't be normal. The problem is that these withdrawals don't happen all at once. They're spread out over the day, the week, the months. Every notification you compulsively check, every interrupted night's sleep, every unfair comparison you make on social media, each one chips away at your mental clarity. At first, the impact is subtle. But before you know it, you've accumulated an enormous emotional debt. Now, think about your daily life. Do you feel like you're spending your energy on things that truly matter, or are you wasting mental resources on habits that leave you more drained? This is an essential question, because in the next section, we're going to explore the 6 silent habits that contribute most to this mental wear, and you might be practicing some of them without even realizing it. Your brain wasn't designed to process this much information all the time. But without noticing, you're constantly feeding it notifications, short videos, news, messages, and an endless flood of content. The feeling of always being up to date might seem positive, but it comes at a cost. Your mind never gets a break. Information overload creates a phenomenon called cognitive fatigue. You feel like you're always busy, but your actual productivity drops. That's because when you consume an excessive amount of stimuli, your brain doesn't have time to organize, filter, and process what really matters. In the end, you just feel more anxious, more mentally cluttered, and less clear-headed when making decisions. Another issue is the illusion of productivity. We spend hours watching videos, reading articles, jumping from one topic to another, and in the end, we feel like we've learned something. But was all of that really useful? Or was it just a waste of mental energy? The solution: create digital detox periods. Set moments in your day to disconnect and let your mind breathe. Replace passive consumption with actions that actually make a difference. Because, at the end of the day, it's not the amount of information you consume that improves your life, it's what you do with what truly matters. And information overload isn't the only silent saboteur. There's another habit that could be draining your energy: perfectionism disguised as high performance. Perfectionism is one of the most insidious habits when it comes to mental health. It disguises itself as high performance, as a commitment to excellence, but in reality, it paralyzes you. You feel like you're never ready enough, that something is always missing before you can act, and this creates a cycle of constant self-criticism and frustration. The problem with perfectionism is that it depletes your mental energy without you realizing it. Every simple decision turns into an internal battle. The fear of making mistakes leads you to procrastinate, rewrite, and revise things that are already good enough, delaying tasks that could be handled quickly. And in the end, instead of producing more and better, you feel overwhelmed and dissatisfied. The solution: Apply the 70% rule. If something is 70% good, it's good enough to move forward. This doesn't mean being careless, but understanding that done is better than perfect. Excellence comes with practice, not with the paralysis of doubt. And speaking of paralysis, there's another habit that holds us back without us realizing: excessive comparison and overexposure on social media. Social media has become part of our daily routine, but what many don't realize is the silent psychological impact it has. With every scroll, we're bombarded with seemingly perfect lives, endless achievements, and moments edited to look better than they actually are. The problem? Our brain starts comparing our real life, with its flaws, struggles, and tough days, to this filtered version of reality. Constant comparison leads to anxiety, low self-esteem, and the feeling that we're never doing enough. Other people's success seems unattainable, creating silent pressure to always chase something bigger. On top of that, the need to share everything online reinforces this trap. The more we expose ourselves, the more vulnerable we become to external validation and the fear of judgment. The solution: conscious social media consumption. Reducing screen time, avoiding content that fuels comparison, and remembering that what we see online is not real life. The focus should be on building a healthy reality outside the screen, not seeking virtual approval. And while comparison drains our minds, another hidden saboteur works even more subtly: microdecisions that overload the brain. Have you ever felt mentally exhausted at the end of the day, even without doing anything particularly complex? This happens because, without realizing it, we make hundreds of small decisions throughout the day, and each one consumes a bit of our mental energy. From choosing what to wear, deciding which message to reply to first, to picking between coffee or tea, all these choices seem harmless but accumulate and cause silent fatigue. This phenomenon is called decision fatigue. When we waste energy on trivial choices, we have less mental clarity for truly important decisions. And the worst part? Mental exhaustion leads to impulsive and unstrategic choices, like procrastinating on important tasks or giving in to distractions. The solution: automate whatever you can. Set fixed routines to reduce the number of daily decisions. Choose your outfits for the week in advance, set specific times to respond to messages, and create a predictable task flow. The fewer unnecessary decisions you make, the more energy you'll have for what truly matters. And speaking of silent exhaustion, there's one habit that directly affects your ability to think clearly: fragmented sleep and the illusion of productivity. Many people believe that sleeping less makes them more productive. The idea of sacrificing sleep to make the most of your time seems logical but is actually one of the biggest enemies of mental health. When rest is interrupted or insufficient, the brain can't perform essential functions like consolidating memories, processing emotions, and regulating stress. The result? More irritability, less focus, and a constant sense of fatigue, even after spending a full night in bed. The problem isn't just the number of hours slept but also sleep quality, and habits like using your phone before bed, waking up multiple times during the night, or constantly delaying rest destroy this recovery. The solution: proper sleep hygiene, avoiding screens before bedtime, setting consistent sleep schedules, and prioritizing deep rest. But even knowing this, many people still fall into the trap of postponing mental health care. This is the last silent habit, and perhaps the most dangerous one: the "I'll deal with it later" syndrome. Taking care of mental health is something many people know they need to do but keep putting off. Small signs of exhaustion appear: lack of patience, demotivation, constant irritability, but instead of addressing them, the response is always the same: "I'll deal with it later." The problem? That later never comes, and the damage keeps piling up until it becomes overwhelming. Ignoring the first signs of emotional burnout can lead to serious issues like anxiety, depression, and intense stress crises. The longer you wait, the harder it is to reverse the impacts. But there's a simple way to avoid this trap: the emotional checkup. Setting aside a moment each week to assess how you're feeling and adjust your routine before problems escalate. Now that you're aware of these 6 sabotaging habits, it's time to learn how to reverse the damage and regain your mental energy before it's too late. Now that you've identified the silent habits that sabotage your mental health, the big question is, how do you reverse the damage and restore your energy? The good news is that small daily changes can have a huge long-term impact. The key isn't to overhaul your routine all at once but to make consistent and sustainable adjustments. The first strategy is the 1% better per day method. Instead of trying to fix everything at once, focus on small daily improvements. If you feel that information overload is draining you, set aside 10 minutes a day to step away from all screens. If you notice that perfectionism is paralyzing you, set short deadlines to finish tasks without endlessly reworking them. The goal isn't perfection, it's continuous progress. Another essential technique is the mental reset. Every day, our minds accumulate stimuli, worries, and scattered thoughts. This creates an invisible overload that increases mental fatigue without us realizing it. To counter this, create space in your day to slow down, whether it's taking a walk without your phone, spending a few minutes meditating, or simply sitting in silence. This strategic pause helps reduce stress and restore mental clarity. Finally, a powerful tool for monitoring your mental health is daily journaling. Writing about your thoughts and emotions allows you to identify negative patterns before they become bigger problems. It also helps organize ideas, ease worries, and strengthen emotional awareness. And the best part? You don't need to write pages and pages, just a few minutes a day can make a huge difference in your mental clarity. The important thing here isn't to change everything at once but to adopt small actions that, over time, transform your routine and restore your mental energy. And now that you know how to reverse these damages, there's only one thing left to do: take the first step. Everything you do on autopilot has a bigger impact than you realize. Small habits, accumulated over time, shape your mental health more than big decisions. And now that you're aware of the 6 silent habits that drain your energy, you hold a powerful tool, the power to change. The question is, what will you do with this information? You can either continue your routine as if nothing happened, or you can use this knowledge to create real transformation in your life. Change starts with awareness, but it becomes real through action. So, here's a challenge for you: which of these habits do you feel affects your routine the most? Comment below which one you plan to eliminate first. And if you know someone who might be struggling with these habits without realizing it, share this video. Small actions can make a big difference in someone's life. And remember, change doesn't mean waiting for the perfect moment. Change means starting with what you have, where you are, and taking one step at a time. Your mental health doesn't have to be a battlefield. With small daily changes, you can reclaim your energy, clarity, and well-being. And the first step has already been taken. You made it this far.